Now you see, what do the Israelites have over there? Or the native Indians? Fringes. Look at them garments. Read that out.
This is the archives of the Aboriginal Knowledge containing all the original papers laid before Congress, respecting the history, antiquities, language, ethnologically, pictography, rites, superstitions, and mythology of the Indian tribes of the United States by Henry R. Schoolcraft. In regards to the manners, customs, habits, etc., of the wild tribes of the Western Territory, a true and more correct type than any I have ever seen may be found in the ancient history of the Jews or Israelites after their liberation from Egyptian bondage. The medicine lodge of the Indian may be compared to the place of worship or tabernacle of the Jews, and the sacrifices, offerings, purifications, oblations, and anointings may be all found amongst and practiced by those people.
Continue. Next source. Now you see on the right-hand side, that is a depiction of a Mayan man, which is wearing a breastplate, which is wearing what? A turban. Keep reading. Or better known as a mitri. Go ahead.
Mysteries of the Mexican Pyramids by Peter Tomkins on page 79. In the manuscript written in Quiche in 1554 by several Mayan Indians, its Spanish translator, Padre Dionisio Jose Chones, had this to say. It is supposed in this manuscript that these three great Quiche nations mentioned in particular are descendants of the 10 tribes of the kingdom of Israel, whom Shalmaneser reduced to perpetual captivity, and who, finding themselves in confines of Assyria, decided to immigrate.
This is in their manuscript. Go ahead.
The actual text ran, these then were the three nations of Quiches, and they came from where the sun rises.
They came from where the sun rises. Go ahead.
Descendants of Israel, of the same language and same customs.
Next source. Now you see this? Another Mayan. He's wearing a shield of David. Go ahead, read that.
The source is Crónicas Indigenas de Guatemala. In 1524, the Mayans of themselves said, "We are the grandchildren of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who were called that way. We are also those of Israel. Our grandparents stayed in Canaan, in that land of God that our Lord granted to Abraham."
Next source. This is what the Indians are saying themselves, by the way. Go ahead.
The History of the Indies of New Spain by Fray Diego de Ren. However, lacking that revelation, we can only speculate and conjecture about these beginnings. Basing ourselves on the evidence provided by these people, whose strange ways, conduct, and lowly actions are like so those of the Hebrews. Thus, we can positively affirm that they are Jews and Hebrews. And I would not commit a great error if I were to state this as fact. Considering their way of life, their ceremonies, their rites and superstitions, their omens and hypocrisies, so akin to and the characteristics of those of the Jews, in no way do they seem to differ. The Holy Scriptures bear witness to this, and from them we draw proofs and reasons for holding this opinion to be true.
Next source.
The source, The 10 Tribes of Israel by Timothy R. Jenkins, page 16. The following is Alexander's Messenger, published many years ago in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. A government officer stationed in...
And by the way, if you think this is fake, I have the actual primary source, because I hold things back for debates. So I have the actual newspaper. Just saying. So go ahead.
A government officer stationed at Lake Superior at an early day before any white settlers had invaded that part of the country, after becoming acquainted with a number of Indian tribes, found one tribe in possession of a copper tube tightly soldered. And when asked what it contained, they said they were not able to tell, but they had received it from their ancestors a long time ago. The officer finally prevailed upon them to let them open the article, and when he did so, he found it filled with parchment, with inscriptions that he could not read. But by sending the parchment to Washington City, where it was examined by competent Hebrew scholars, it was declared to be part of the 5 books of Moses. Here, we have another link in the chain, proving that the Hebrews were here many years before the white man came to this continent.
The devil.
And that the present North American Indians are their descendants.
Next source.
The source is Cherokee Religion, Alvin O. Langdon, Chief Ottawa, Cherokee Nation State of Tennessee. In the beginning, Yahweh created the sky world and our mother
In
earth.
the beginning, Yahweh. Yahweh. Go ahead.
The waters around the earth were dark and deep, but the spirit of Yahweh moved upon the face of the waters. And Yahweh said, "Let there be light." And the sky world and our mother, the earth, lit up. That's the pronunciation how they speak. They were
Right.
saying. And Yahweh called the light day because we could see to work and to plant our crops. And he called the darkness night because we could rest in cool comfort. And Yahweh divided the waters of the sky world and the waters of the earth world. And it so came to pass that everything Yahweh had made was created in 6 suns, and he had satisfied with his creations. And this is why Yahweh has commanded us to rest on the 7th day and to respect the number 7.
Damn. Now you see on the right is a Mayan sculpture identified by Adjervan. I have this book. This book is thousands of dollars. All right. And it shows a lot of depictions in it. It's called something about unfamiliar faces in ancient America. And it goes into a lot of things. I'm gonna just leave it like that. But this is one picture from that book that shows a Mayan with the shield of David on his ear.
Yep.
See that? Yeah, read the source.
The source is from Manasseh ben Israel, the Hope of Israel, translated to English in 1652. It says, "I shall speak somewhat in this discourse of the diverse opinions which have been, and shall declare in what countries it is thought the 10 tribes are: Hispaniola, which would be the Dominican Republic, the island of Cuba, the continent of America, Panama, New Spain, Mexico, and Peru."
Next slide.
This source is from Mariano Edward Rivero, John James Vault Schutte, Peruvian Antiquities in 1857. Like the Jews, the Indians offer their first fruits. They keep their new moons and their feasts of expiations at the end of September or in the beginning of October. They divide the year into 4 seasons corresponding with the Jewish festivals. In some parts of North America, circumcision is practiced. There's also much analogy between the Hebrews and Indians in that which concerns various rites and customs, such as the ceremonies of purification, the use of the bath, fasting, and the manner of prayer. The Indians likewise abstain from the blood of animals, as also from fish without scales. They consider divers quadrupeds unclean, also certain birds and reptiles, and they are accustomed to offer as a holocaust the firstlings of the flock.
Next. Now on the right, you see the details, the first page of the Bortarian Codex depicting the departure from Aztlan. Now that's the depiction up top. That's the actual manuscript on the bottom. Because what the Spanish and the conquistadors were doing is they were going to the walls of the pyramids and the walls of the cities, and they were drawing what they can do the best way they can. Okay, so this right here is a story in the ancient Aztecs that was showing that they came from over the sea where the sun rises, and he's going to read it right now what they're depicting. Okay,
this source is from the Pre-Columbian Landscapes of Creation, and origin editor John Edward Staller, page 122. All of the major Kachin sources are consistent in relating that the mythological founding fathers of the Kachin nations originated from somewhere across the sea. According to Popol Vuh, the forefathers Balam Quitzi, Balam Akab, Mahukata, and Akui Balam came from Chapapala across the sea. Ulet al Kushi, where the sun emerges, that is from your east.
So that's where they came from. Now, this is the actual depiction that they were drawing from the walls. You see that? They were depicting that they came from across the sea. Next slide. This is known as the Newark Holy Stones. Now you got the Decalogue and you got the keystone here. Now you see the pictures. You see how they look. Hebrew inscriptions right there in Ohio. Okay? You can read it out.
The Newark Holy Stones and the Decalogue Stone in June and November of 1860, respected Licking County, Newark, Ohio surveyor David Warwick unearthed two stones bearing Hebrew inscriptions. The first was a triangular-shaped keystone, number 2 in photo above, and the second was called the Decalogue Stone, which is the number 1, encased in sandstone, and the sarcophagus, numbers 3 and 4, and accompanied by a small stone bowl, which is number 5, nearly the size and shape of Hebrew temple ritual bowls.
This is in Ohio. Next source. It's the Bat Creek Stone, found in a mound. All right, I believe it was in Tennessee. All right, he's going to read it now.
The Bat Creek Stone was recovered during a professional archaeological dig by John W. Emmer of the Smithsonian Institution's Bureau of Ethnology in 1889 during its mound survey project. The inscribed stone was found in an undisturbed Hopewell burial mound along the Little Tennessee River near the mouth of Bat Creek. Additional Hopewell diagnostic artifacts recovered with the stone include bone and wood and pieces and 2 brass bracelets whose metallurgical properties nearly match those of ancient Jews in the Levant, Israel, portions of the Mediterranean. The inscriptions on the stone was assumed to be Paleo-Cherokee and subsequently published by the Smithsonian in their annual report of the Bureau of Ethnology between 1890 and 1891 on page 392. In 1964, Chicago patent attorney Henriette Mertz and Hebrew linguistics expert Dr. Cyrus Gordon identified the writing as a form of ancient Paleo-Hebrew Judaic. They discovered that the stone had been published by the Smithsonian upside down and that it was legible Hebrew once the stone was rotated.
Next slide. This is the Grave Creek Stone. A lot of people don't know about this one. Go ahead.
Near Braxton Creek, West Virginia, have been found which bear identical characters. This text may represent a form of Paleo-Hebrew dating from around 250 BCE.
250 BCE in Virginia. Next source. Now this is right. Guess where this is right by? This is right by, because I don't got to put this in, the Los Lunas stone. This is right. First of all, there's more than just the Los Lunas stone. All the surrounding areas have a bunch of pictographs and depictions of a variety of things. Now, this is a depiction right here of what would be the Ark of the Covenant. Okay, so when you go around here with the natives, describe this as an ancient tradition on how their ancestors will carry something that held something dear inside that was ordained from the Great Spirit. Yeah, read the source.
This is the history of the American Indians, London. Edward and Charles Dilly of 1775 on page 13. From the most accurate observations I could make, in the long time I traded among the Indians of America, I was forced to believe them lineally descended from the tribes of Israel.
Next source. Now you see this is a garment of Ohio Indians. You see the borders are blue with the fringe? The borders are blue with the fringe. Go ahead, Al.
This is the Occident by Isaac Lesser. The sons of Jacob was walking on the soil of Ohio many centuries before the birth of Columbus.
Next source. Now the bottom is a depiction of certain royalty that were Incans. Okay? This is a panel from the painting of Larco Museum in Lima, Peru, depicting the Incan emperors. All right, read the source.
This is a companion to Global Historical Thought by Wiley Blackwell on page 217 and 218. In Peru, the Inquisition, hypothesizing that the natives might have been descended from one of the lost tribes of Israel, associated the conversos with the Incas, who supposedly resembled physically the ancient Hebrews.
Next source. Now you see these, I put this on the side, right? Now you see these pyramids of Mesoamerica that are the same thing as known as ziggurats in ancient Samaria. So why would there be a comparison of the pyramids here and the pyramids of the Middle East? I'm just saying. Yeah, read the source out.
This is Yucatan before and after the conquest.
This is another primary source, by the way. Okay.
On page 8. Some old men of the Yucatan say that they have heard from their ancestors that this country was peopled by a certain race who came from the east, whom God delivered by opening for them 12 roads through the sea. If this is true, all the inhabitants of the Indies must be of Jewish descent.
Next source.
This is from PBS Nova Online. Where are the 10 lost tribes?
Now this is from PBS, a profound, what you call it, media outlet. Now, just like I said with the other one, I have the primary on this, but I'll save it. Okay, read this out.
This is in the early 16th century. Bartholomew de las Casas became the champion of the Native American Indians, devoting his lifetime to improving their conditions. In the West Indies, Peru and Guatemala, Las Casas wrote, these Indians can bring near the redemption if we treat them humanly in this world and convert them to Christianity. We are preparing for the redemption of the Western world and the Messianic era. Their conversion is apt indeed, as I am convinced that Indians originate in ancient Israel. Indeed, I can bring proof from the Bible that they are of the lost tribes. The association of the Indians with the lost tribes was heard again and again. The report by Portuguese traveler Antonio Montesinos, some 120 years later, aroused remarkable interest. It was a thrilling journey I took in South America. Now that I am back in Amsterdam, I must share with you some incredible news. This nigga demon. There is a Jewish Indian tribe living beyond the mountain passes of the Andes. Indeed, I must heard them recite the Shema, the expression of the Jewish faith, and saw them
which
observe,
is Shema Yasha'ala Yahweh Alahayanawa Yahweh Achad. Yeah.
And saw them observe the Jewish rituals. Christian theologians awaiting the second coming were thrilled to receive this welcome news. The tradition held that when the 10 tribes were found, reunited and restored to the Holy Land, the Messianic age will close at hand.
Next source.
This is continuing. The American tribes of whom I'm about to treat have a general character peculiar to themselves, yet they differ in some striking particulars one from another. Their general resemblance has been observed by many persons who independently of each other have visited distant parts of that vast continent. There has been found a great likeness throughout, together with the lines of difference, similar to those which are seen in the societies that possess the lands of the old hemisphere, although they are spread over a country which bears a near proportion to the eastern continent and stretches as wide from north to south into the frigid and over the torrid zone. Still a great resemblance is discovered among them, they have all the appearance of being descended from one stock. I shall produce much more than the mere conjecture, many circumstances which amount to a strong presumptive proof and abundance of corroborating facts. Those minor points in similitude will be regarded in the proper light and be allowed to throw in their might of evidence in support of the interesting fact that the immense population which the continent of America was found to be inhabited on its first discovery were the direct lineal descendants of the 9 tribes of a half or large part of them that were carried captive by the Assyrian king, and since their banishment from their own country had been lost to their brethren, the Jews, and to all the historians of latter times. But they can be altogether lost, or can they be intermingled among the new tribes that had been formed in the new kingdoms that have sprung up? They constituted a large portion of the chosen people of God, concerning whom so many prophecies stand recorded in the holy books, for whom so many striking interferences took place under the direct agency of the Almighty, for the express purpose of separating them from the idolatrous nations, of keeping them a distinct and peculiar people, of making them bear his name to the ends of the earth and spread his glory among the nations. Can they then be lost, destroyed, rooted out from the habitations of men? Or can they be so amalgamated with those idolaters who conquered them, or with those people with whom they have since dwelt, as to be no more known a separate people, as to have lost their identity and be nowhere to be found in that day to which the language of prophecy directs our attention, when those have been dispersed among the nations, and those who have been cast out shall alike be called by special voice of God to return.
Now, this is the source because it's being blocked out from the bottom from this, right? This is A View of the American Indians by Israel Worsley, page 3 through 9. All right. Next slide.
The source is by Edward John Payne, History of the New World Called America in 1899. By way of illustrating the method of miscellaneous affinities, we will follow our author yet a step further. From Cuba, he passes to Haiti. The true form of which name, he tells us, is Kaitin Tetuakuth. He supposes this is to be derived from the bold Israelite who first reached the island. At any rate, it is pure Hebrew, though we are not enlightened as to its meaning. The Una River, which rolls its golden sands through the great eastern valley of Haiti, bears the name of the prophet Jonah. The Yaqui, that of the patriarch Jacob. As for the peninsula of Samana, that is named from the Midianite chief Zalmunna, the river Hena or Jana, on whose banks the ruins of Buenaventura still mark the mines of Columbus, is named the Ain, a fountain. Carib, canoe, and Kakike, Makana, which is club, and Aji, which is chili pepper, are alike referred to as Jewish origin. The next source is Edward John Payne, History of the New World Called America, which is the same source. By the way of illustrating the method of miscellaneous affinities, we will follow our author yet a step further. From Cuba, he passes to Haiti. The true form of which name, he tells us, is Kaitin Tetuakuth.
Yeah.
So this is the same, this is reiterating the same point of the
Right, exactly. Next slide.
This is from the medieval empire of the Israelites.
This book is a lot of money. Okay?
As regards to the South American Indians and their possible relationship to the lost tribes of Israel, an article was published in the Israeli paper Mariv in December 1974 with the following content. In 1587, the Jesuit Nicholas Deltsu was sent to South America by the King of Spain for missionary purposes to convert the Indians to Christianity in Argentina. Nicholas discovered a people who bore Jewish names, namely Abraham, David, Moses, and so forth. To the question about whether they were circumcised, these people answered thus: yes, just like our ancestors. In the same region were found stone knives used for circumcision. Sharpened stone
Why
knives.
you asking niggas if they circumcised? Go ahead.
Right.
Are you circumcised? Kind of weird shit. Go ahead.
Sharpened stone knives are mentioned also in the Bible as special instruments for completion of the rite of circumcision. An Argentine tribe where a stone slab with 3 commandments was found causes no less interest. Do not steal, do not lie, do not kill.
Next slide. Now, on the right is the Fuente Magna bowl, found in Bolivia with the form of cuneiform writing. Why is cuneiform writing in America? Anyway, go ahead, read the source.
So the source is a Star in the West, which is page 249, which says Acosta says that the clothes of South Americans are shaped like those of the ancient Jews, being a square little cloak over a little coat. In fact, in his description of South America, as well as Escar Bodas assures us that he often heard the South Americans repeat the word hallelujah.
Hallelujah. Next slide.
This is also from A Star in the West, which is page 111 through 112.
Very good book, by the way. You should buy it. Yeah?
The Indian informed him that one of their most ancient traditions was that a great while ago they had a common father who lived towards the rising of the sun and governed the whole world. That all the white people's heads were under his feet. That he had 12 sons by whom he administered his government. That his authority was derived from the Great Spirit by virtue of some special gift from him. That the 12 sons behaved very bad and tyrannized over the people, abusing their power to a great degree, and so as to offend the Great Spirit exceedingly. That he, being thus angry with them, suffered the white people to introduce spirituous liquors among them, made them drunk, stole the special gift of the Great Spirit from them, and by this means usurped the power over them.
Now, these are prophets saying this to the white man. This was happening. Prophets in South America saying this to the white man. Okay?
And ever since the Indians' heads were underneath, and ever since the Indians' heads were under the white people's feet, but that they also had a tradition that the time would come when the Indians would regain the gift of the Great Spirit.
Damn right.
From under the people, and with their ancient power, when the white heads would be again under the Indians' feet.
So the white man was going to be underneath the Indians' feet. That's the tradition. You can go back, huh?
Prophecy.
Prophecy, huh?
Yeah, go over to them.
You see that? You go to the next one. Now, the right is Hebrew petroglyphs in Puerto Rico. I will go more into detail with this in future classes. All right? Read that out.
The source is the Quible commentary of 1672 all the way to 2012. Anthropology in Virgin Islands music. Despite the dynamics in the African religions and the worship style of the Taínos, they both generally believed in spiritual component to human existence and a divine creator. It may be also interesting to find a linguistic connection between the Taíno word Yakahu and Yahweh, or other terms for God in Hebrew, Greek, or Aramaic. Considering the religious diversity among the African Virgin Islanders, the Bambula would have been especially meaningful as a venue for unity.
Next slide. Now you see on the right hand, it says at Tula Toltec capital. This is from the Mysteries of the Mexican Pyramids by Peter Tomkins, page 351. This is a picture I took of my book. All right. It says at Tula, the Toltec capital, which is in Mexico. Issachar had a son named Tola. Anyway, at Tula, the Toltec capital, shoveling the rubbish from the remains of a house, Disraeli Carne found many curious, such as huge baked bricks, filters curved with water pipes, and what appears to be small Phoenician seals. What is ancient Paleo Hebrew called? Phoenician. Small Phoenician seals and a vase with bearded, robed, mustache Tolak holding a bolt of lightning. You can read the source out.
The source is Relaxiones Históricas. And his name is the Don Fernando de Alba.
Yeah, you go with it.
So it is found in the histories of the Toltecs that this age in First World, as they call it, lasted 16 years. that men were destroyed by tremendous rains and lightnings from the sky, and even all the land without the exception of anything, and the highest mountains were covered up and submerged in water. Translated to read 15 cubits concerning that word. And here they added other fables of how men came to multiply.
Now this is the customs that the native Indians, and they're telling their stories and their tribal traditions to the white man. Yeah.
And here they added other fables of how men came to multiply from the few who escaped from this destruction. And what that word means. That this word is talk to Lakolev. That this word nearly signifies a closed chest, and how after men had multiplied, they erected a very high zukali, which is today a tower of great height, in order to take refuge in it.
So what is this talking about? This is talking about the Great Flood. Then after the Great Flood, the Tower of Babel. This is in their customs and traditions. Okay?
In order to take refuge in it, that the second world age should be destroyed. Presently, their language were confused, and not being able to understand each other, they went to different parts of the earth.
Next source. Now you see her bag? I'm just saying. Yeah, read that.
The source is History of the American Indians by James Adair, page 214. The Indian native from Florida to Panama believed in one true, immortal, and invisible God reigning in heaven.
Next source. The source is American Anthropologist. Yeah, you can read it.
American Anthropologist, 1994, volume 6, on page 154.
Yeah.
It says, it is in his comparative dictionary, however, that the author really exceeds all canons of true linguistic science. He discusses here about 900 words representing some 1,200 Semitic compounds, comparing American words selected at random, chiefly from 6 distinct languages, with supposed Hebrew-Aramaic equivalents. The utter futility of any such attempts to connect American with Asiatic languages will be seen from the following examples, which really need little comment. On page 22, he compares Ketsaranuk, Keapanek Nasungi, with Aramaic Ayanuka, baby. He compares with the Kola Kori, Ketsukori, with Hebrew Saris, gold. The Taino Karibana, Buana, with the Hebrew Banian, building, which is house. These examples have I purposely chosen because there is a faint, of course, accidental similarity between some of the words. When, however, we compare the following, we see how far the author has wandered afield in his vain search for word similarities.
So you see that there was linguistic similarities between the Indians and the people in the Far East, all right, in the Levant. You could go to the next source. That's all it's gonna keep saying. Yeah, read that there.
This is from Woodbury Lowry, the Spanish settlements within the present limits of the United States, from 1513 all the way to 1561. The first recorded European contact with the people of the Cherokee Nation was with the Spanish explorer Hernando de Soto. When de Soto landed in Florida with his soldiers in 1539, he brought with him Spanish mastiffs, chains, and iron collars for the acquisition and exportations of Indian slaves.
Of what?
Of Indian slaves.
Of Indian slaves. Go ahead.
Hundreds of men, women, and children were captured by de Soto and transported to the coast for shipment to the Caribbean and to Spain. A Cherokee from Oklahoma remembered his father's tale of the Spanish slave trade, quoting, "At an early state, the Spanish engaged in the slave trade on this continent, and in doing so kidnapped hundreds of thousands of the Indians from the Atlantic and Gulf Coast to work their mines in the West Indies.
And thou shalt go into Egypt again with ships." You understand that? Egypt is not a location. It's a condition. Next source. This is in 1958. Read that out.
Dear Mr. This is Tekakwitha Indian Mission Incorporated. Sisselton, South Dakota. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Seeley, thank you very kindly for your donation of $10 for my little Indians. Yours is the first invitation that was ever extended to one of our papuses to come and spend a vacation somewhere. We have a few little boys and girls who have no one at all interested, whether they live or die or come and go. I would send a little boy of 6 years or older or a little girl, whatever you prefer. These Indian children are very little trouble, especially the one I have in mind. If you really mean it, I will see that till we get him ready. You may have him at any time you desire. I am not making any inquiries about you because it takes a good person to make an offer as you did. Please let me know. With kindest regards.
The devil. So this is in 1958. You understand that? On the right-hand side, back into the book, Mysteries of the Mexican Pyramids by Peter Tomkins, page 350. Now, this is striking Semitic figures found throughout Mesoamerica. Now, if you look at that, you see the beards, you see the garments, you see the representation of bells around the garment, which is a Levitical practice, and you see upturned shoes, which all comes from ancient Assyria and also comes from Persia. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, read the source, huh?
So this is the same source, except it's page 348. It says, after considerable research, she traced the upturned shoes to either the Hittites or the successors and imitators, the Phoenicians, renowned as great seafarers who regularly wore long clinging double robes, turbans and ribbons, pointed beards, and upturned shoes. So impressive is the evidence accumulated by scholars to the effect that the Phoenicians reached the shores of both North and South America. It is hard to understand why it continues to be shunned.
Next.